Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Lindsay. If you are new, please subscribe if this is the first time that you've been here. Today we are working on the junk journal project with me for the month of July, and we are making a 4x6 soft cover, one signature yellow botanical fabric covered journal. And I'm just going to work through it and show you how you can use pieces in your kit. If you are interested in purchasing this kit and you have not yet, there will be a coupon code below so you can take 25% off the kit. There's still some available in my shop. And there's always ways to get free shipping now. You can either add 6 or more items to your cart and that will automatically give you free shipping, or if you spend more than $75 in my shop, that will also automatically give you free shipping. So here we go, let's get right into it. So if you see in your kit, you will have a piece of chipboard that measures 6 by 8. So when you fold it in half, it is a 4 by 6 size. And that's going to be the base of our journal. Pretty simple. It's a really cute size. It's still big enough to write in, but it's not too big, doesn't take too much time. Trying to get my lights right. There we go. And then you should have a piece of fabric, and I bought a whole roll of this fabric at Habitat for Humanity. I love it. It has so much character. It looks old to me. I don't know for sure if it is or isn't, but I have so much of this. I am going to list some in my shop, and I'm going to sell it by the like a journal cover piece, which will be, I don't know, somewhere around 18 by 20, like that would cover a 9 by 6, half yard and yard lengths. They're not going to be exact. I mean, I'm going to kind of just do your typical arm length measuring, but you'll get an idea about how much fabric you'll get. So you can click that below too if you just want some of this fabric for your stash. I don't think there's any way you can get this fabric anywhere else. I doubt it. It would be hard to find. I would think. I'm not sure. Okay, anyway, so here we go. For the cover, we are going to just use a glue stick. You could also use a tape runner. Use a tape runner or wet glue if you're not going to be sewing, but since I'm going to be stitching around the edges of this journal, all I want is my extra strength glue stick from Elmer's so that it will just kind of hold the fabric in place while I stitch around. So I'm going to take the fabric, and those of you who already have this kit, I gave you a pretty good size piece of fabric, so there should be plenty of scraps to either use in the journal or to use on another project. So just flatten it down the best you can, flip it over, and trim. You can either trim exact to the edge, or you can leave just about 1/8 of an inch of fabric. It just kind of gives a really raggedy edge. I don't usually fold the you can fold the fabric over to give a really neat look, but these are junk journals, and so I really like more of the raggedy look. So just cutting, I'm trying not to cut the lace in my background there. There we go. I've been house cleaning for the past hour or so, and I'm all warm and a little overworked from that, I feel. So I'm like, oh, trying to catch my breath. All right. There we go. We also started our homeschool today. So my oldest is in K5, and then I have one in preschool, and one just kind of doing little coloring books and things here and there. So we've done some of that this morning as well. So it's already been a busy morning over here. All right, so there we go. Now we're going to put in the end papers, and we are going to line this with coffee dyed paper. I love the look of coffee dyed paper for end papers. So again, I'm just going to tack it down with the extra strength glue because I'm going to be sewing. If you are not going to be sewing, then definitely use like a double-sided permanent adhesive or something like that. If you line up as many edges as possible, then that is less cutting and trimming that you will have to do. So I've lined up this side and this side with the edge. So theoretically, I should only have to cut 2 sides. We shall see how that works. And maybe I should have done the end paper first so I could have seen the lines a little bit better. So if you haven't done that yet, you might want to do that. Otherwise, I'm just pulling the fabric back a little bit so that I can see the edge and cut a fairly straight line. But again, these are junk journals. They do not have to be perfect to be beautiful and usable. All right, here we go. All right, so now we have our end papers, or the inside cover. I didn't cut them separately. Okay, I'm gonna fold it again, make sure, okay, that fit beautifully. Now I'm gonna take it to my sewing machine and just stitch around the edge, and I'll be right back. So here we go, all stitched around. And if the paper, when you're working with coffee dyed paper, if it kind of creases or whatever, just let it crease. It adds a lot of texture. Another way you can prevent that is by cutting it down the middle, kind of overlapping it. If you want to, you can do it that way as well. But I like how this came out. I really like the coffee dyed stain right there. So here is, I'm just gonna decide, this is the front. I'm gonna have this be the back. There's a little like string hanging there, which does not bother me, but I'm deciding this is gonna be the front. So let's decorate our cover. We're gonna look in our kit, and we are gonna find the Yellow Botanical set of ephemera, the Yellow Floral. So there are 5 sheets to this ephemera pack, and they are all yellow flowers, vintage prints of yellow flowers. They are all in the public domain. They can be used in journals to sell. You can also just buy this kit by itself in my shop. It does come with this journal kit if you purchase that as well. Anyway, so we're going to choose what we want for the cover, for the flower on the cover, and there's obviously no right or wrong reason, right or wrong piece to choose. So I like this one. I'm just going to cut it out. I printed on 110-pound ivory cardstock. I usually buy the Spring Hill brand from Amazon. It's usually somewhere around $10 for 250 sheets, give or take $1 or $2. All right, so there we go, and that's going to be our cover picture. Let's see, I'm just going to round the corners a little bit and ink the edges. I'm going to use this dye ink pad, the Cocoa Color from Ranger. Bought this at Tuesday morning. Got to round all the corners here. My 2-year-old interrupted me and I lost track of what I was doing. You could use a corner rounder if you wanted to be very specific, but this works for me. I'm going to ink the edges so it stands out, because I'm going to back it with a scrap of that coffee dyed paper. We cut it down for the end paper, and so we still have some left. So I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of glue in the middle, stick it down, have a little bit of a rip right there, and I'm just going to sew around this image. So here we go. And you can take this to the next level if you'd like, and you could add lace, you could add buttons, you could add, you know, charms, whatever. But this I'm keeping very simple. I'm only using what came in the kit. The last 2 journals that we did were much bigger and much more involved, and so I wanted one this month that would be a little bit cheaper and that would be a little bit simpler. And then those of you who are more advanced and have more supplies can use this as a base and add things from your own stash to it. So I've glued that to the front, and this is my cover. I absolutely love how it came out. It looks so vintage, so amazing. So let's get those pages together. So you should have 2 pieces of scrapbook paper in your kit. You should have 5 extra coffee dyed pieces of paper and a big bulb page. Bulbs from a book on bulbs. It should be really, really pretty like that. And we are going to cut these pages in half to make our pages. So I have my little guillotine trimmer from Tonic. Actually don't care for it that much. I just use it because. All right, so let's see. If it is 6 inches, we're gonna cut it somewhere around here. Does not have to be a science. It really, really doesn't. I'll show you how we can measure for sure later on. Okay, so once I have this, if it's 4 by 6, I want to take about a 1/4 inch off. We don't want it right at 4 because that's how big the cover is, and we want the cover to overlap just a little bit. So I'm going to take just like a 1/4 inch off the edge. And then I think that is probably good for the length. I'm going to fold this in half here. Again, make sure it's 3 3/4. And then make sure these pages, they can actually be a little longer. That's a problem with this trimmer, is there's no pull out. It just stops here at like 5 inches or a little less than that. So some of it is guessing when you use this trimmer. Okay, so now we have 2 floral pages, and then we're going to do the same thing with our coffee dyed paper. Let's see. I'm going to fold it in half the long way. Then we can trim it down to 2 pages per pretty simply. As you can see, I have great measuring skills. So what I love about junk journals is there's so many ways you can just fudge it. You can just take shortcuts and it still looks amazing. You don't have to measure it out to the 1/8 of an inch. You can eyeball it. Some can be larger, some can be smaller. And the combination and the difference looks really neat. All right, here we go. Okay, so we know this is 11 inches. So if we cut it to 5 1/2, which is somewhere around there, be just a little more, we should have hopefully the right size pages. Don't you just love it? I'm doing a tutorial and I'm just like, eyeball it. But I want to be real with you. I don't always measure everything perfectly. And I'm cutting a whole bunch of pages at once here. Alright, so there's our coffee dyed pages. And now we have our 2 scrapbook pages. Again, we're going to fold them the long way. And do the same thing, cut it about in half. And then make sure that we are at 3 3/4 for the width. Whoops. I might be doing too many pages at once here. And so if that happens, and you've done that, no worries. We'll just move this out of the way and we'll fix it. We are going to do a little bit of a ripped edge. And if you didn't make the mistake, you don't have to rip the edge, or you can just if you like the effect, because I did that in another journal and I loved the effect. And I want to cut off this white strip here at the top from where my printer did not print all the way to the top. So that sheet is ready to go. We are going to rip this one too. My 2-year-old keeps coming over and needing something, so that's why it keeps cutting out. All right. So I might be doing this the long way, but like I've said before, I like to keep in the parts where I mess up just so that you can see how to save things. A lot of times I read posts on Facebook in the journal groups where people will say things like, oh, I didn't like the way I sewed it in. I didn't like the way it cut. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. I had to start over. I've started over 3 times. And what I like to say is, I would say about 95% of the time, it is salvageable. It is fixable, and you just have to be creative. And you have to not get stuck in your own head, because when we come to a journal, we will have an idea of what we want to do. And if it doesn't work out that way, we say, oh, it didn't work out, and we try until we get it the way that it is in our head. But if we are flexible crafters, then we can go with the flow and create something even better than what was originally in our head. Because now we have these really neat ripped edges that are going to look absolutely amazing. And I'm going to get my trash out of here. There we go. Okay, so we should have all of the pages ready to put into here. So now we're going to arrange the pages, and there's no right or wrong way to do this. We're just gonna lay them inside each other any way we feel like doing it. There's so many different ways to do this, but don't overthink it. Just lay all the pages in there. Most of them are coffee dyed, so you're gonna have to double and triple up on those ones. Okay, so now we have a nice signature. It's like a little booklet. We're going to stick it right into here, and then we're going to sew it in, and we're gonna use a pamphlet stitch. So this is an awl. It has a sharp point. You could use a thumbtack as well, but these definitely work better. Make sure it has a really sharp point, because I had one that was really thick here, and it would make the holes so large it would almost damage the book. All right, so I am just going to paper clip the pages into the cover, because you don't want them sliding and slipping around when you are sewing it in. It will cause you a ton of frustration. All right, so we're going to do a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So eyeball it, one in the middle, eyeball it, one on each end. Does not have to be perfect. Do not over measure it. I mean, you could if you wanted to. It just wastes a lot of time. All right, I have a large needle and some vintage twine from Above Par Crafts. This is my favorite book binding twine right now. Steph sent it to me from, she owns Above Par Crafts, and I've been loving it. Okay, and since it's vintage twine, I think it'll go really well with the vintage fabric. We're gonna go in through the middle, leave a tail. We're gonna go up through, whoops, of course now it's not going through all of the layers. It's a lot of pages. There we go. Up through here, pull tight, back down through the middle, through that hole, and then we're going to tie it off at least twice. 3 times is definitely better. Pull tight, tie again, pull tight, and I'm going to tie one more time, pull tight. Take our scissors, cut it off, and our book is done. Now we have to do is embellish it if we want to, and I'm going to show you some ways to use the other things that I put in the kit in this adorable journal. Look at that. How cute is that? I love it so much. Okay, so if you look, you should have a closure, and we'll talk about that at the end. And then you should have a clear, like see-through Rolodex card holder. And we are going to use some of our vintage ephemera prints to tuck in there. So we're going to choose 1 or 2. It doesn't matter. And I'm just going to show you how neat they are. And the reason I included these as well is I just found them at Goodwill, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'd use them or not. And I want to show you what a neat effect they have in journals, so that if you see them at a thrift store or something like that, you will pick them up because they're really, really cool. All right, so I've chosen this image right here. I'm gonna just ink up the edges really messy, and then tuck it in here. And it looks really neat. You can pull it out, journal on the back, and find a page in the journal and clip it on. Super cool. I just love the way that looks. So that is one thing that came in the kit. The other thing that came in the kit are these little book pages. They are all on different bulbs, and we are going to make some easy things. I'm going to show you some things you can do. One of the things that I have been loving, and I wish they weren't double-sided, because if you want to rip or cut one up, you're losing some of the image. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, and I've been enjoying this, is just ripping out a piece of the book, kind of framing what you like, inking the edges, and just gluing it onto the page. And you can take a sewing machine and you can stitch around it if you want that extra highlight, but for sake of time and simplicity, I am going to just find a page, grab my glue stick, and glue it on. You can do this with images from magazines, books, pamphlets, flyers. It just adds a lot of interest to the page, goes along with our theme. And then there's still a few more yellow flowers on this side, so let's take advantage as much as possible of what we have and find another little place in the book that we can glue this on. Maybe right there in the middle. Kind of break up that blank and boring spread of just coffee dyed paper. It would be really neat to pull out like your Tim Holtz word stickers or sayings and to add those throughout as well. I'm also going to cut out this little bit of information about this flower right here. And we can add that to this side. It's fun to just read a little tidbit about what you've pasted in there, because you may forget by the time you get to it what is it. If you're giving it as a gift, that's really nice as well. And then this is a little plant profile. It's a cute little green table of information. And I'm thinking about maybe layering that here somewhere as well. There we go. So there's a nice little spread we made from just part of a book page. Another thing we can do, if we really like both sides, like I'm looking here to see, like I really like both sides of this book page, we can just fold it like in half or in thirds and clip it in somewhere as well. I'm looking for like a blank spread. And then later on, people can pull it out, read it, or you can then cut it up later and use it for collaging. So that is a great thing you can do with it as well. You can also take, so there's two other pages, I'm just trying to see here. Okay, so we can make like a tuck spot with one of them. What would be a good, I really like how this shows the whole plant and then it shows an up close. So I'm just going to cut out part of this to make a tuck spot. I'm just showing you the simple things, obviously. So this is going to be our tuck spot. We're going to use a little bit of this wet glue and just, I'm sorry, my boys are not letting me film this today. All right, so we're just going to add, every time I start the video back up, they start crying, mommy, and then they're happy. And so I go back to filming it. And then as soon as they hear the video again, they go right back to it. It's hilarious. All right, so we are going to, can't get this wet glue out. Okay. Just glue two sides. Normally I use hot glue because who has time for this? Find a page and stick it on. And now you have a tuck spot. So when that dries, you have this little pocket to tuck photos, notes, things like that into. That's a great way to use it. Also, you can just cut out the flower and use it as a journal card. So we're gonna just cut out the picture here. And if you back it with either a scrap of paper, there's no more that came, well, there is. Okay, that'll work. So just grab your scraps. I'm gluing all the way to the edge because I am not using my sewing machine with this. So I want to make sure that all of the edges are glued really well. Okay. And I'm leaving a tiny little border there. So here we have a nice journal card. You can journal right on the back of that. Just find a little place and find a little clip. And there we go. Now you can do the same thing for all of these. Just choose the ones you want. You can cut these out, use them as tuck spots, journal cards, save them for other projects, rip them and use them in collage. I gave you way more than you will probably use in this journal, but it gives you lots and lots of options and opportunity to decorate this journal. You just grab your closure, and we're going to do a very simple closure. We are just, well, actually, there's two ways you can do it. You can just tie it on, which is what I was going to do, but if you can, and there's enough room, you can thread it through one of the bindings stitches there, and then that kind of holds it. You could add a bead of glue if you wanted to, and then just tie it up. And how cute is that? Thank you so much for following along with this tutorial. I would love to see pictures of your finished journals and all of the little extra touches I know you guys will add to it. So if you'll go to my Facebook group, Nevermore Creations, Junk Journals and Friends, and post pictures, I would absolutely love to see what you came up with. Check out the links in the description box below. I will see all of you in the next video, and in the next couple of days, I'm not sure exactly when, I will have the project up for next month, so you can go ahead and order that kit.